Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, big developments in the war with Iran. I promise we're going to keep you updated. But another key Iranian official, leadership official, this time their intelligence chief, the man who oversees their global sleeper cells and their global terrorist network, has been taken out by the Israelis. I mean, I'm not kidding. Soon there's going to be nobody left. In other words, regime change. There's not going to be much of a regime left. Anyway, so the leadership is being hunted down by the Israelis, by our forces systematically. So I promise, if I have time, we'll come back to that issue, because obviously the war is intensifying and the Iranians are losing. Every single day, it's blow after blow after blow. But domestically, this is the big issue. And when the Iran war is over, and I pray it ends quickly and decisively, obviously, for the United States, this issue of election integrity, of voter fraud, of vote rigging, ballot harvesting, ballot trafficking, the corruption of our election system is going to stay with us. And so what is happening now on the Senate floor is now going to live with the United States, impact the United States for years, if not decades to come. And that's why I have said repeatedly that the Save America Act, short for the SAVE Act, I'll use the shorthand, the SAVE Act is the most important piece of legislation of the 21st century. And as it stands right now, it not just hangs by a thread, but it appears that the Republicans are doomed to fail. Now, here is, and I don't want to be doom and gloom, but I'm just calling it the way I see it. So here is now exactly what is taking place. As you know, the SAVE Act would effectively end or curb substantially Democrat voter fraud. If it passes, it would mandate that every person who votes, every citizen, must first register to show proof of citizenship before they can vote. Secondly, it would establish national voter ID for every state, every election. No photo ID, you can't vote. And it would require all of the states in the union, every single state, including corrupt Massachusetts, to purge the voting rolls of non-citizens and illegal aliens. In other words, it's not perfect. It's not a magic silver bullet, but everybody agrees it would radically reduce voter fraud and election corruption. That's why, and as Trump rightly says, it would almost guarantee a victory for Republicans in the midterms, because if the Democrats can't cheat, they can't win. And so this would substantially reduce voting fraud and would restore, for the most part, election integrity and honest elections. And to me, in a republic, what is more important than that? Okay. However, there is a 60-vote threshold that the Republicans have to meet in order to overcome unified Democrat opposition. And that's the first point I want to stress, is that Schumer now has managed to get every single Democrat, and that includes, for all of you Fetterman lovers out there, that includes Senator John Fetterman from Pennsylvania. So remember this. Fetterman opposes the SAVE Act. Yesterday, he voted against the SAVE Act. So what the Republican leadership now is trying to do is they are now trying to get the SAVE Act to the Senate floor to launch a debate, almost like a debate marathon. And this is going to last today, tomorrow, Friday. It may go on all weekend. It is going to go on and on and on in order to put a spotlight on the issue of voter ID, on the issue of election fraud, voting fraud, and to make sure that the Democrats are put on record as being essentially in favor of stealing elections, of being opposed to election integrity, and that they oppose voter ID, which is massively popular in the United States. In fact, the SAVE Act itself has over 85% support among whites, Hispanics. It's about 82%, blacks 76%, across the spectrum, Democrats, independents, Republicans, white, black, Latino, it doesn't matter. This is one of the most popular pieces of legislation in history. And yet the Democrats now are about to sabotage and defeat it. Why? Because Senator John Thune is refusing to nuke the filibuster, to end or eliminate the filibuster, the 60-vote threshold, and pass it along a straight majority line. Now, yesterday was a critical test. The Republican leadership trying now to push this to the Senate floor to have a wide-ranging debate, as I said, a debate-a-thon, put everyone on record. Who supports it, who doesn't support it, who wants to advance the SAVE Act to get to the Senate floor so people can debate and eventually do a final vote. Every Democrat opposed, and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, that RINO Judas, and Tom Tillis of North Carolina, that other RINO Judas. By the way, Tillis is retiring, so this is his final year. He's not up for re-election in November. He's not going to run anymore. But Tillis and Murkowski have both come out against the SAVE Act. Against the SAVE Act. Now, it passed 51-48, barely. But as I said, that's not enough. They need 60. Because Thune is refusing to do what is necessary, i.e. end the filibuster or eliminate the filibuster in order to get it passed. So at 51 or 52 or 55 or 59, it's still not enough. Listen now to John Thune. Go to the Senate floor and say, we are going to have a debate. We are going to try to shame the Democrats. We are going to do everything possible to try to get the American people to see who supports voter ID and honest elections and who opposes honest elections and voter ID. Roll cut 13, Mike.
As everybody knows, we are looking forward to having an important battle on the floor of the Senate this week on the Save America Act. And obviously the message that came over from the House includes a couple of key components, one of which is that you have to prove citizenship to be able to register to vote in this country, and the second component is that you actually have to show an ID to vote in this country. We think those are both things that are overwhelmingly popular all across this country, no matter what your political party is.
Okay, now on that, Thune is right. I agree with him. Okay, I don't agree with Thune on much. You know what I think of him. I think he's a rhino snake and should not be the Senate Republican leader, but let that go. As I said, I've nicknamed him Mitch 2.0. He's Mitch McConnell 2.0. And by the way, he was an acolyte of Mitch McConnell, okay? Almost handpicked to be McConnell's successor, okay, by McConnell himself. But that's okay. That's okay. On this, he's right. My question is this. If this is so popular, and it is, and this is so necessary, and it is, why aren't you willing to go all the way? Instead, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Kuhner Country, because I'd love to hear. In fact, I want to take calls right after the break. I want to hear from you on this. Is this all nothing more than political theater, a show? Whereby you're going to get passionate speeches by the likes of Senator Mike Lee, who's been a sponsor of this, and he believes in the SAVE Act, and God bless him. But people who truly believe in the SAVE Act, And so, it'll take up time. It'll take up a lot of oxygen. It'll get media coverage. And, Thune will pretend, well, we fought and we fought like hell and we did everything we could. But in the end, we just didn't have the votes to break the 60 vote threshold to filibuster. And so it'll go down in defeat. But boy, we gave it the old college try. And of course, the swamp survives. Our election system remained corrupt. Voter fraud and the Democrats' voting fraud machine continues. And the Democrats are likely then going to steal the midterms or and deliver Trump a massive defeat. Or do you think that this is a wise strategy? Let the American people see the debate.
This episode is brought to you by Spreaker, the platform responsible for a rapidly spreading condition known as podcast brain. Symptoms include buying microphones you don't need, explaining RSS feeds to confused relatives, and saying things like, "Sorry, I can't talk right now, I'm editing audio." If this sounds familiar, you're probably already a podcaster. The good news is Spreaker makes the whole process simple. You record your show, upload it once, and Spreaker distributes it everywhere people listen. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and about a dozen apps your cousin swears are the next big thing. Even better, Spreaker helps you monetize your show with ads, meaning your podcast might someday pay for, well, more microphones. Start your show today at Spreaker.com. Spreaker, because if you're going to talk to yourself for an hour, you might as well publish it.
On this vote, the yeas are 51, the nays are 48. The motion is agreed to. The chair lays before the Senate the following message from the House.
Resolve that the bill from the Senate as 1383, entitled An Act to Establish the Veterans Advisory Committee and so forth and for other purposes, do pass.
620 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. So that was the sound of the vote to advance the Save America Act for an all-out debate on the Senate floor. So 51 Republicans voted for it. 48 voted against it. They were all Democrats, including Senator Lisa Murkowski from Alaska. She's a RINO. She crossed over, voted against even having a debate on the SAVE Act. Tom Tillis is openly against it as well. He opposes it. He didn't show up for the vote, or else it would have been 51-49. So there's 51 votes for the SAVE Act, but the filibuster is in play, and Schumer says they're not going to relent, and they're going to debate, and if they want to go to a talking filibuster, they're going to talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, but they will never allow the SAVE Act to be passed. So we're going to be debating this, and it's going to, as I said, take up a lot of media attention. It's going to be on the media day and night for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 days, however long it goes on. But it's, unless there is some radical breakthrough, and there's only two ways. Either Thune does what the voters want him to do, what I want him to do, which is nuke the filibuster, as they call it, eliminate it from the rules of the Senate, and say from this point forward, no, we're changing the rules. It's no longer 60 that's required, 50 plus 1 and a simple majority, and you can pass legislation like the SAVE Act. Unless he's willing to do that, it's going to fail. Or, and this is the hope, it's a Hail Mary, but that's the hope, that as they debate and debate and debate, and the Democrats are put on the record again and again, opposing national voter ID, opposing election integrity, opposing honest elections, and an attempt to end voter fraud, this will damage them so much politically that maybe people like Fetterman may decide it's not worth it, and they're going to cross the aisle. I don't think that's going to happen, to be honest, but that's me. And so I want to ask all of you, 617-266-6868, as things stand right now, do you support the SAVE Act, or as it's more formally known, the Save America Act? And do you think the Republicans can get it passed? And if they don't get it passed, I'm just curious, what are your feelings about that? Should there be consequences? Should Thune be kicked out of the leadership? Should every single one who votes against the SAVE Act, Trump has said he wants them all primaried. He wants Lisa Murkowski primaried. Whoever else comes out against it should be primaried. He says he's had enough. The RINOs are sabotaging him at every turn. And he says he's done with the constant being undermined by members of his own party. That the backstabbing has to end. 617-266-6868. Larry in Arkansas. You're going to kick us off, Larry. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. I'm going to ask a question that may seem off topic, but I'll bring it right around. How many years now has Iran said death to America?
Since their founding, 1979.
And who keeps giving excuses that they don't really mean it?
The Democrats.
Right. Now, when the Democrats say, we're going to end the filibuster as soon as we take back power, who keeps telling us they don't really mean it?
The RINOs.
Where's the difference?
That's a very good point. I mean, that's a really good point, Larry. And Larry, let me ask you this. You're a very astute political observer. What do you think is going to happen? Is this all smoke and mirrors? Is this a dog and pony show whereby John Thune is playing us for fools? Let's have a debate, a marathon debate. This thing's going to go on for days. Trust me, it's going to get outside of the war. It's going to get saturation media coverage. But in the end, he knows the end result. It's baked in the cake. They don't have 60. They don't have close to 60 votes. And he's not going to end the filibuster. So it's going down. But he's acting and pretending like, boy, we fought like hell for this. Is Thune playing us for fools? Or do you think the Republican leadership is really fighting to win it? What say you?
Well, it's hard to say he's playing us for fools because we already know the rat he is. You know, it's not like anyone's going, oh, my God, he's going to do it. You know, we know what his game is. You know, the question is, can the actual conservatives, and honestly, there's not very many, can they pressure him to do the right thing and end the filibuster? Right? What else is going on right now? We've had at least 5 Islamic terrorist attacks already. And we're still in a partial government shutdown because of the Democrats. TSA is screwed up. Everything is screwed. They're trying to do...
Larry, can you do me a favor? We're up against the break. I want you to finish your thought. You're making an absolutely, really, really insightful point. Okay, the SAVE Act now on the cusp. They are now going to start a marathon debate. It has advanced to the Senate floor. It passed, barely, but it passed, 51-48. Doesn't mean the legislation is passed, but just the procedural hurdle was crossed so that now Republicans can open up debate. And they're hoping that they can convince 9 Democrats to flip and get to 60 to end that, to cross that or overcome that 60 vote threshold, which is the filibuster, to make it filibuster proof. So far, Fetterman is against it. Everyone else is against it, but even Fetterman, who was seen as the one maybe most likely to bolt and revolt against his party. Schumer saying, I take it to the bank. We are unified in opposition to the SAVE Act. And it's obvious why. Because you clean up our election system, the Democrats lose. So they are fighting now for their very survival, their very power, their very voters. They have illegals voting. They have non-citizens voting. And so, of course, they don't want to clean the voting rolls. And they don't want photo ID. And they don't want to have proof of citizenship to register to vote. And so I've never seen the Democrats this ferociously united. I don't think on any issue. And Schumer himself openly said, we are willing, his words, to die politically on this hill. In other words, we're like kamikaze. We will fight this to the bitter end. Thune is not willing to eliminate the filibuster, to nuke it, which would then just require a simple majority vote to get it passed. And so here we are, 617-266-6868. Let's go right back to Larry in Arkansas. Larry was making the point that this is all a dog and pony show, that Thune and other RINOs just don't want the SAVE Act to be passed, but they're playing us, or they think they're playing us, by pretending to fight and have this debate go on for days, knowing that in the end it will fail to get 60 votes, and hence it will go down in flames. Larry, please pick up where you left off.
Well, Jeff, let's look at Lisa herself, Murkowski. How did she get into the Senate? Do you remember?
Well, they had that. Are you talking about originally or the last time? Because she's not popular in Alaska, but they had that rank voting system, which I really oppose. And so basically now with 35% of the vote, because she can, get enough independents and moderate Democrats, she able to squeak through and go up the middle, even if she loses a primary. So is that what you're talking about, Larry?
Back. She wasn't elected originally. Her father appointed her in 2002. He was then governor, and he appointed her because he used to be the senator. She's basically. And you're right. And it was in 2010, she lost the primary to a guy named Miller. And then she just miraculously, I can't talk this morning, came back in a write-in campaign in the general and won re-election. She would get tossed if the SAVE Act passes, because the corruption would be gone up in Alaska as well. So this isn't only affecting Democrats. This is affecting some of the RINOs.
Oh, Larry, I'm so happy you mentioned this. And this is what I wanted to ask you, and it's a brilliant segue. And I want to throw it open to the entire audience, because I agree with you. I think she's just as corrupt as the Democrats in terms of the voting system. And so this is her argument. She came out against it, and people are shocked because Trump carried Alaska by 13 points. You know this better than I do, Larry. Alaska is a deep red state, and overwhelmingly the SAVE Act, you think it's popular nationally. It's even more popular in Alaska. Okay, it's like in the 90 plus. She comes out and says, well, I can't vote for it. And you're like, well, why? Your constituents are begging for it. Why? This is her argument, Larry, that in deep rural areas in Alaska, there are certain places where people live, this is what she claims, that they have no roads. Like no roads, no accessible roads. And so to ask them to go and show proof of citizenship to vote, to be able to get the proper photo ID, that they would have to buy plane tickets. I swear to you, buy plane tickets. I don't know, like one of these like 2-engine planes or whatever, and fly from the deep forests and mountains of Alaska to go to, say, Anchorage or Juneau or wherever. And that this would cost them thousands of dollars, and they got to pay lodging, and they got to pay hotel. And she said this is just an undue burden on these rural voters that live so far away in such remote areas that, as I said, they don't even have roads. So I'm saying to myself, like, what do? They just fish for food and hunt animals for food and like drink from lakes? I mean, what? There's not I don't know if there's not a grocery store nearby. There's not a gas station nearby. I mean, what? Like, but she's acting like no, like literally where they live, you can't get out unless you fly them in and fly them out. Now, Larry, What do you make of that argument? Because Tillis in North Carolina is making the same argument. He says, no, in rural areas like in North Carolina, to ask people to show proof of citizenship, they can't do it. They're too remote. They live in areas, no roads. They live in the hills. To ask, they'd have to travel for hours and hours and hours. That this is just such an undue burden. Basically, you're taking away their 14th Amendment rights. So, Larry, our rural people, rural voters, that alienated, that far away, that they can't show proof of citizenship, that they can't get photo ID, that, in fact, both Murkowski and Tillis say you have to have mail-in balloting. Because if you don't have mail-in balloting, they just can't vote. Because they just live in such remote areas, how can they get to a polling place? What say you, Larry?
So by that logic, they wouldn't have any technology such as televisions, internet, anything like that. If they're so remote, they have no idea what's going on anyways. So how likely are they to vote? Let's recap. You've got too rural. They too expensive to vote. Now, this is not my words, okay? According to Democrats, black people are too stupid and inept to vote or find their voter polls or get ID. And women are too slavish to the Republicans and this and that to be able to get their birth certificate, get all this stuff to prove they are who they are. Isn't that amazing how inept all these voters are, and yet we want them to vote?
I think it's checkmate. I mean, I think you've made the checkmate argument. And I think what you really, and your point, and I think it's a brilliant point, is that Murkowski is corrupt. And yeah, she needs these quote unquote deep rural voters because that's where these boxes magically appear for her to keep stealing elections up in Alaska because nobody can stand her up there. And that's why they want to keep this voter fraud going. In other words, it doesn't just benefit the Democrats, it benefits the RINOs. It's unbelievable. It really is. Larry, as always, thank you so much for that call. Look, let me ask, and I'm being serious, let me ask the audience, because we do have, people who live in rural areas that listen to this show, farmers, obviously. Is it so hard to show proof? I'm serious. Is it so hard for people in rural areas to show proof of citizenship or to get photo ID? Angelo in Rockland. Thanks for holding, Angelo, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, how are you?
Very good, Angelo. What's on your mind, my friend?
Oh, my God, a lot. But, yeah, I know it. Mr. Schumer, I hope I insulted him by saying that, and Spoon, not Thune, the Spoon, they are slinging it so bad. But let's not forget, 80-20, we all support this, Jeff. I wouldn't go nuclear. I'd go Armageddon. This has to pass. It has to pass. The people want it this bad, and, we're willing to die and fight for our country for what's righteous here. This is more than righteous. This has to be done. They're willing to die on their hill politically. I say, get your weapons and meet us on the hill, and we'll see who comes out on top. That being said, the people that want to vote remotely, we have the technology to bring a Chinook in and drop a voting booth for them so they don't even have to drive 2 miles from their house. We got the means to make everybody vote correctly. Let's not think out of the box and forget who we are. We're America. We can do whatever we have to do. We're the dog. We wag the tail. The tail does not wag the dog. Let's get it together. Let these people know on the Hill in Washington who's boss. You are working for us. Don't forget it, Schumer, Pelosi, all of you. We are America. You work for us. And you know what? They all took an oath to save America and do the right thing in America's interest. Right now, by closing down all these TSA and all this stuff, they are putting American lives in jeopardy. They went against their oath. I'd get the military, arrest them all, And now they're locked up. Their vote don't matter anyway, and let's move on and get this country on the right foot. That's what I would do, because they are out of touch against the American people, deliberately treasonous acts, and I'm done with them, Jeff. I wish I was in charge, because maybe I would, well, I wouldn't kill them all, but they would pay a price, and they do the right thing for America. We need patriots, not paper tigers. What do you say on that? Oh,
they're crooks. Oh, you're dead on. They're crooks. I'm telling you, they're crooks. And this is, you say they work for us. You're right. Of course they work for us. But now we've developed a system. Okay, this is an oligarchy. Let's be clear. This is what they've now created. It took many decades, but this is where we are. No, they think they own us. They think they're our overlords. And so, and think about it. Schumer's been there forever. John Thune has been there forever. Mitch McConnell, they got to basically, he's half dead. He's got a foot in the grave. And, he can't speak. He can't think. He's passing out everywhere. He's falling down the stairs. Finally, they're saying, okay, he's got to go. But what is he, 90 years old? Nothing against 90-year-old people. I know many of them that are very sharp. Mitch McConnell is not one of them. If he could be there to 110, he would. I'm serious. As a stiff, he could be there. A dead body, he'd be there. So why? Because they can steal. When you have Ilhan Omar, I'm just using her as an example, who can go from literally being in the red. Okay? She owes money. She's in the red. And in 1 year, she's worth over $30 million. What is that but an oligarchy? It's a kleptocracy. They're stealing. The rule of thieves. So the key to their power is to stay in power forever. And how do they stay in power forever? Voter fraud. You can never remove them. Ed Markey, here. You can't remove the guy. Elizabeth Warren, you can't remove the guy, the fake Indian. And same thing with all these members of Congress. Because there's infinite numbers of votes they can rely on whenever they need it. And that's why they're all willing to fight to the death on this, because it's for them, it's everything. And, you mentioned the government shutdown. I don't want to get too sidetracked, but I want you to think about this, okay? Just objectively. We're in the middle of a war. Again, whatever you feel about the war, I'm just stating a fact. We're in the middle of a war. The enemy, the Iranian regime, has now said this is a holy war. They have declared a jihad against us, meaning they are activating sleeper cells. They've openly said this. We are activating sleeper cells that we have in the United States to kill as many Americans as possible. We had 9/11, where Islamists hijacked 4 planes and killed 3,000 Americans. Hello, the one thing you need is good airline security. If you give a damn about your fellow citizens. Instead, they have shut down the Department of Homeland Security. You got these TSA agents. They haven't been paid in nearly a month. Already, 336 agents have quit. They're like, I'm not going to live like this. I can't get a check and you want me to work? I'm out of here. You have lines now so long. I don't know if you've seen it in Austin, Texas, in Fort Lauderdale. It's getting to the point. Hey, I read it in this morning's papers. They're going to have to start closing down airports temporarily. Shut down airports. Because there's no TSA agents. And think of the inconvenience. The safety is obviously the most important, but waiting 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours in line to simply go through TSA screening? And the Democrats think this is a big joke? Because they want to, court and cater to their radical left-wing base? Because they want to stick it to ICE and say, ICE is not getting a penny. Well, actually, they're funded in another bill. So you're not doing anything to hurt ICE. Stupid. But this is what you're willing to subject the country to? And I'm sorry, I have to say it. I see so many of these moonbats, and I don't mean to be insulting, but I'm sorry, I got to say it. They're idiots. They're standing in these lines 3, 4, 5, 6 hours just trying to board a plane. And they're like, you realize it's the Democrats, right? They've shut DHS down. This is partial government shutdown. That's why you're waiting so long. You hate it, right? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Will you vote for the Democrats? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So let me get this straight. You're angry at them for putting your safety, your very life in danger. You're waiting half a day just to get through TSA screening. You're cursing at them, but you're going to vote for them? Yeah, liberalism is a mental disorder. I don't know what else to say. And, you know, my wife has made this point to me in private many times, Grace, my wonderful Grace. And she's right. She goes, look at the arrogance of these politicians. They don't go without a paycheck. Most Americans today, and I don't say this as a criticism, again, I'm just stating an objective fact. They're living paycheck to paycheck. Let me ask all of you, in all honesty, how many of you can go a month without pay? Because that's what it is now for these TSA agents. Others as well, FEMA, the Coast Guard, I could go on, but I'm just talking TSA. Can you go a full month without a paycheck? So you're working and you're working and you're working and you're working, but no paycheck? You miss one pay cycle, then a second pay cycle? You got to put food on the table. You got to pay your bills. You got expenses. So what are you going to do? Rack it all up on the credit card, and then what? The next paycheck doesn't come in, so you got to pay 20% interest through the nose? Like, is this... I mean, look how insulting and the contempt that they have for ordinary people and for, for government employees that they claim that they love. No. If there's a government shutdown, TSA doesn't get paid or anybody else, they don't get paid. No money for you. If TSA agents can't get a paycheck, you don't get a paycheck. It's that simple. Instead, notice, they always get paid. No matter what. They can shut the whole damn government down, but they get paid. They always get paid. So, look, after a while, we have to say enough is enough. When are we going to end the corruption? When will the corruption finally stop? Now. Clean up our elections, have honest votes in this country, end the voting fraud. The Democrats will fall and the RINOs will fall. Angelo, thank you so much for that call. Yeah, agree, disagree. Tricia in Salem. Thanks for holding, Tricia, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi.
You're like a college course on fire, to the 10th power. You're on fire.
Thank you, Tricia.
Yeah, you stole my thunder, and I'm glad you did. Because the reason I was calling was I was listening to the newscast on you or some iHeartRadio newscast, and they actually announced that sorry for the delays at the TSA due to the Democrat government shutdown. They came right out and Democrat shutdown. It's their fault. They don't want to pass the bills and so forth. And you just said everything I wanted to say right down to the point because I'm 73 and I listen to Michael Savage. And he used to say liberalism is a mental disease. And it is. And I'm the Chinese drywall lady. I don't trust nothing that comes out of there because I should have been working as an assistant gym teacher with my bachelor degree from Salem State in my life. Instead, I had to work for myself from home, and I'm proud to do it. I'm a proud American, and I want to give the work that I am so blessed to have, because I can't know how people can live without a mission. I have a cookbook, and it's an educational take, and I'm a really good cook anyways, and I want to get to a graphic artist, and I'm ready to go back to work with all the clothes I collected and donations and thrift stores throughout. I'm a healthy person because I do have a degree in phys ed, and it's a lifestyle for me with the carrot juice or whatever. Am I going on?
No. Well, listen, God bless you, Tricia, and that's what I mean. Look, people like you, people like me, we're the backbone of this country. This audience, we're the backbone of this country, and we're just tired of it. We're tired. We're done. That's what they just don't get it. We're just done. We're done. We're done with you stealing our taxes, stealing our money, taking away our vote or nullifying our vote through stolen elections or voter fraud. We're tired of you constantly catering to illegal immigrants and illegal aliens. Forgive me, they're not immigrants. Illegal aliens. I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of it. And, here, I got a vacation coming up next month. And it's a little premature, but it's 30th anniversary for my wife and I. Our real anniversary is in July. But anyway, we wanted to celebrate it, and we got a good deal, long story short. So I'm taking the kids and my wife to celebrate our 30th anniversary. Now, I hope this thing is resolved by next month. I work very hard for my money. And, it's a very special vacation, very special trip for me and for the kids, and obviously for Grace. I'm going to have to wait 5, 6, 7, 8 hours in line just to be screened, just to get on a plane. What are we, a third world banana republic? This is insulting. But to me, the bigger thing is, Grace says to me, I hope it's safe. No, it's not safe. How can it be safe? They've shut down the Department of Homeland Security in the middle of a freaking war. Who does that? And on top of all of this, you would figure there'd be blowback from the Democrats because, they fly on planes too. And no matter how much you hate Trump derangement syndrome, you're like, well, the mullahs, they do want to blow up our planes. They have sleeper cells. They've activated them. If you're low on TSA agents, or if you've got lines going back 6, 7, 8 hours and people are angry and swearing and cursing and they're going to say, okay, just let them through. Just come on. People are upset. Just let them through. You know how it is. Come on. Look at them. Look at the line. It's going back for miles. So just let them in. Just let them in. Let them in. And you let in one. All you need to do is let in one. And kaboom, on a plane. And everybody on that plane is dead. And Schumer's laughing. Because the AOCs and the Bernie Sanders and the Bills in Sudbury and the Chris's in Gloucester, they want to stick it to ice. So this is where we are. So no, you're going to reopen the freaking government. You're going to fund TSA. I'm not a big fan of TSA, but still, they work. They deserve a paycheck. Give them their paycheck. And you're going to open up these lines so people can fly again, and you're going to make sure that we have top-of-the-line airline security, especially in the middle of a war. And when it comes to stealing elections, that's over. Done. No more. No more voter fraud. And what's amazing to me, final point, Murkowski says, farmers can't do it. Rural people can't do it. They can't register to vote. They can't show proof of citizenship. They can't vote in person. My God. They can't show photo ID. The Democrats say black people can't do it. Women can't do it. Minorities can't do it. But how come the rest of the world can do it? I mean, I'm not exaggerating. The rest of the world has voter ID. Somalia has voter ID. South Africa, every country in Africa has voter ID. Venezuela, Latin America has voter ID. So are you telling me that we're uniquely stupid as a nation? That we have people that are so idiotic and so low IQ that suddenly, I can't get ID. I mean, is that what they think of this country? That we're a nation of mass imbeciles? I mean, to me, I would be embarrassed to be even making this argument on behalf of the Democrats. But there they are with a straight face. And they're stealing elections. They're telling you they're stealing elections. And John Thune says, I'm not going to break the filibuster. No, I'm not. We'll debate it. We'll hash it out. Yeah. We'll let the American people see. You're a loser. Okay, Thune? If your mother didn't tell you, I'm telling you, you're a loser. Tricia, thank you so much for that call. Anthony in Michigan. Thanks for holding, Anthony, and welcome.
Dr. Kuhner, how am I coming through on my
Loud
earphone?
and clear. Go ahead, my friend.
Thank you, sir. You're a blessing as always, in the words of Princess Amadella, in regards to the Senate. Is this how the Republic dies? Jeff, I want to start this off with, about a month ago, we communicate, but I've never met him in person. I consider him a friend, Dr. Larry Schweikart. He ran a story about who is that Republican female senator that's retiring from one of the northwestern states. And basically she said, Trump is working us too hard. And I want to juxtapose that against Trump and Elon's work ethic. These guys work, 10, 12, 14 hours a day. We are on the verge of some great changes in this country, and we need this august body to be working at the speed of light. And that's one reason why. But you remember back in the day, Newt didn't want to do a second contract for America because he thought there'd be a mutiny because of the amount of people that were just exhausted. And, this brings up another point. Do we need age limits in the Senate? For 67 is the cutoff date for airline pilots. I would be not, I think that'd be great. And I really feel that this is a tipping point, very much like in 96 when Bob Dole could not get that one extra vote to pass the balanced budget amendment. If Thune doesn't get this through, if Thune doesn't get rid of the filibuster, because if they take over the Senate, they're going to do it. The Republic, very much like Princess Amadella said, I think it's over.
Well, it's going to be over. I mean, look, it's never over until it's over, obviously. But you're setting up the Democrats to steal the midterms. And they're definitely going to steal the midterms. And they've said it. Once we steal the midterms, we're ending the filibuster. And when we end the filibuster, D.C. will be a state. Puerto Rico will be a state. That's going to add 4 senators right there. We are going to pack the Supreme Court. We're going to add justice after justice after justice. We are going to abolish the Electoral College. And we are going to impeach Trump. They've said it again and again and again. They're just going to keep impeaching. And unlike, the Republicans who wouldn't touch Mayorkas, they're going to go after Kristi Noem. Now, they can't get her because she's not DHS secretary anymore. Now they're calling for a criminal referral. They want her in jail. They're going to put leading members of the Trump administration in prison. I think people have no idea what's waiting for us when the Democrats, or if the Democrats, storm back to power. So I'm looking at, John Thune, and I'm like, either you're the most disconnected man from reality I've ever seen in my life, or you're bought and paid for. And I'm telling you, John Thune is not a stupid man. I'm being serious. He's not. He's a corrupt man. No question. He's a snake. But a snake is cunning. Snake is not stupid. And they slither on their belly, and they sting, and they kill you, but they're not stupid. And I believe John Thune is clearly on the take. There's no question. And that's why I slightly look, I'm for term limits, Anthony. Please, don't get me wrong. So, I just think you should serve a limited amount of time in Congress and then move on. Okay? Because that's how the corruption seeps in with these lifelong politicians. This is not an age issue. I mean, it was, say, with Mitch McConnell or Joe Biden, but that was also a dementia issue. Again, look at Trump. He's 80 years old. He's got the stamina of a lion. So I don't look at it so much as age. I look at it as cognitive health and physical health. But, Lisa Murkowski is not ancient. I'm just calling it as, John Thune is not ancient. These RINOs that keep stabbing us in the back, it's not because they're, 100 years old and don't know what they're doing. So they're stabbing us in the back because they're corrupt. Thune, because he's taking money. He doesn't need a voting fraud machine in South Dakota. South Dakota, they're going to vote for John Thune because he's a Republican. Now, he's on the take. He's being paid like the Republicans in Massachusetts. They're paid to lose. Murkowski is corrupt. I mean, he's corrupt as well, money-wise. But I mean, Murkowski is electorally corrupt. She needs voter fraud to keep herself in power. And that's why she's with the Democrats all the way. And look at it from Fetterman's point of view. That's why I always look at these conservatives and Republicans and go, oh, Fetterman, I love Fetterman. I go, what do you love Fetterman for? He's a liberal Democrat. I mean, he's not as insane. as the other Democrats, and that's basically pretty much on Israel. Okay, the Middle East and Israel. That's about it. 7:20-ish, almost 7:21 now on Wednesday. You know what that means. Caller, what am I saying? Truth or troll? Take it away, Mike.
And now, America's favorite game show, where you get to decide on the Kuhner Report. This is Truth or Troll.
Today's entry for Truth or Troll comes from President Trump speaking to reporters on Air Force One when he is asked about his plans for Cuba. Here's what the Don had to say.
Tell us about Cuba. You're talking to Cuba. What do you want to hear from them, and what is that risk for them?
I am holding Cuba. Cuba's a failed nation. Cuba also wants to make a deal, and I think we will pretty soon, or either make a deal or do whatever we have to do. They've been waiting 50 years for what's happening with Cuba, so I think something will happen with Cuba pretty quickly.
So he says we'll either make a deal or do whatever we have to do. Now, here's a question. Does that mean we invade, doing whatever we have to do? Is he telling the truth there, or is he trolling? Like,
no,
he's
he's definitely telling the truth. No, Mike, he's 1,000% telling the truth. Cuba's about to fall. They haven't had power now, electricity in 9 days, almost 10 days. People are starving, literally starving. They're rationing food. The regime is withering away. Their incompetence. They have the communists have run that island into the ground. You've got protests breaking out all over Cuba. Freedom is on the march. And
so the thing is he going to just open the gates and let the Marines out and take over Cuba that way?
Well, he's already on the phone with the leaders of Cuba. I think he's telling them, look, don't force us to do a Maduro on you. We don't want to have to arrest you and bring you here and put you in jail. If you guys leave, you can take your millions that you've stolen. Go ahead. Go to Switzerland. Go to Russia. Go wherever you want to go. But, it's the choice is yours. But the clock is ticking. So basically, he's just going to give him a little push. Just a little push. And that whole regime is going to come crashing down. And when it does, it's going to be one of the happiest days of my life, Mike. To see that brutal communist regime go down in Cuba, I never thought I would see it. So and Castro, the Castros to me have been a disaster for Cuba. And to see these Cuban Americans go back to their ancestral homeland, it's going to be a great day. It really will. So to me, Trump is now becoming the liberator. He really is. It's Trump, the liberator. So I don't think he's trolling the Cubans. He knows they're on the ropes, and the Cuban people themselves may finish him off. But if not, Trump's going to give him just a little push, and that regime is going down. They're going to fall. The only question now is when. But that's just me. I want to hear from you. Is when Trump says that he can do whatever he wants with Cuba, and that Cuba now is about to fall at any moment. Is he trolling, A, or B, is he telling the truth? I think he's clearly telling the truth. To me, it's obvious the Cuban regime is crumbling right in front of our eyes, but that's me. I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner. KUHN is a national ER. You can also vote via X, my handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, KUHNER. Lisa in the Freedom State, Florida. Thanks for holding, Lisa, and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. We adore you and the Kuhner Country contributors.
Thank you.
Quickly,
Thank you, Lisa.
2018-19, they had a shutdown for the border wall funding. It was the Super Bowl, and the Dems held the line. I think that if we don't hold the line, it's a shakedown. Next, I wonder if Nick Shirley could go into Schumer's office and take pictures of the palazzo, 20-foot ceilings and fireplaces. We should impeach Thune. And we should tell the airline CEOs to resolve the shutdown or deny flying to senators.
Oh, I like that. Lisa, I like that. You know, the airline CEOs are livid, and I don't blame them. I like that. To tell the senators, okay, you want to shut it, you want to damage our industry, you want to, shut down all, DHS funding and TSA. You know what? You don't fly. How's that? Huh? Lisa, thank you very much for that call. Really good call. Okay, let me reset the table. They are now debating the SAVE Act. It is going to come up for a vote in about 3 or 4 days. Will John Thune and the Republicans prevail, or will the SAVE Act go down? And if the SAVE Act does go down in defeat, what will be the consequences for the midterms and for the future of the United States? If the Republicans don't pass the SAVE Act, and right now they don't have the votes. Well, I don't want to keep repeating myself. They have the votes. They have 51 votes. But Thune keeps refusing to end the filibuster. So, and the Democrats are absolutely united. It's what Lisa said. Whenever their interests are at stake, they're like a stone wall. And that's what Schumer is promising, and that's what he's delivering so far. If the Republicans can't get the SAVE Act passed, will you feel personally betrayed? And will that affect you in terms of your vote, say, in November? I'm just curious. Are you going to stay home to punish the Republicans? What do you think the impact, the consequences will be? And it's like the Democrats will have gotten away with it. Here was our one chance to end voter fraud, and now they escape. And they will escape to be able to steal the midterms, and God knows what they'll do after that. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, just very quickly, this is Paulie on Messenger, and I think he makes a superb point. Jeff, we are asking the people who cause the problems and benefit from the problems to fix the problems. We are all doomed. That is a great way of looking at it. It's these corrupt politicians that have enabled election corruption and voting fraud. They benefit from it. They stay in power. They get filthy rich. They get even more power. They get even richer. And so what? We're expecting them to fix something that they've caused and that they benefit from? In a way, aren't we being a little bit naive? 617. I mean, I'm not advocating for violence. I'm just saying if we objectively think about it, why would the swamp put itself out of business? 617-266-6868. And then there's another really good point. This is from Mark on Messenger. And Mark makes an absolutely great point. Schumer, and I'll play the cut later, but Schumer keeps going on. This is now the number they keep going on about. 21 million. You see Adam Schiff, Schumer with these big, signs in the Senate and these charts, and it just says 21 million. And they claim that's 21 million Americans who will be, quote unquote, disenfranchised should the SAVE Act pass. And first of all, I'm looking at, how did you get to this ridiculous number? Like, what, you guys just make stuff up? But then Mark sent this message, and I think it's unbelievable, but they've outed themselves again. Jeff, this needs to be said. Don't you find it very strange that the Democrats claim that the SAVE Act will disenfranchise 21 million Americans? Now, do you believe that it's actually real Americans, Jeff? No. Is it a coincidence, Jeff, that just about 20 million illegals crossed the border 4 years ago? I don't think so. Once again, Jeff, the Democrats say the quiet part out loud and think we won't notice it. So even when they go with their 21 million, they're actually saying those are the illegals. No, we say Americans, but no, hey, you're disenfranchising our voters. What the hell is this? 21 million. They can't vote anymore. They're practically telling us, you pass the SAVE Act, illegal aliens, non-citizens will no longer be able to vote. We're going to cut them off. And that the Democrats will not allow. Jake in Gloucester. Thanks for holding, Jake, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Jake.
A pleasure to reach you again. I haven't talked to you for a while, Jeff, but there's a reason why I haven't called regularly like I used to for 10 years. It's because we're blaming the wrong people. We're blaming the Democratic Party, which is corrupt, which is vile, which is evil, which is just sickening to even listen to. But what's even more sickening to listen to is MSNBC, NBC, CNN. It's so disgusting that these people carry the water and enable the Democratic Party to survive. As I just told Sandy, if it wasn't for this corrupt 90% media, back in 2016, the Democratic Party would have been in the dustbin of history. They wouldn't have survived. But now, because this corrupt media, 90% of the national media is so corrupt and carries the water for these Democrats that they're going to survive this year and they're going to take power this fall. When John Thune won the majority leader in the Senate, I called you and I said, Jeff, it's all downhill from here because he's a good friend of Mitch McConnell. He's a RINO, and Rick Scott would have made a great Senate majority leader. Rick Scott, as
Jake,
you know.
Sorry, Jake, I don't mean to cut you off. I promise I'll give you all the time in the world. I actually remember that call. I mean, you can't remember every call. You just can't. It's humanly not possible. But I remember that call. For whatever reason, that call stood out. Because I remember as you were talking, I was nodding, and I said, no, he's right. No, he's right. They should have gone with Rick Scott. Rick Scott's a MAGA Republican. He's a Trump loyalist. He'll move heaven and earth to get stuff passed for Trump. I said, but Thune, I'm like, we're just getting a younger Mitch McConnell. I go, this guy's making one, Jake, I know you, Jake, obviously for many years, but I'm like, this guy's making a ton of sense. Like, I knew we had a Judas, not just in our midst, but a Judas in control of the Senate Republican majority. And that's why my stomach was upside down. And I said, I know Trump's going to be on his back. I know Trump is going to push him and push him and push him and push him. But still, Judas is Judas is Judas. And now Judas has just exposed himself. Please, you're on a roll. Keep going, Jake.
Thune has exposed himself. And yesterday I saw his interview with Bret Baier. Now, I'm not a big fan of Bret Baier because he doesn't really push these people, but he did push Thune yesterday on several questions, and Thune kept hemming and hawing and explaining why we can't break the filibuster. Well, if you can't break the filibuster on one of the most important bills ever to come up in this country's history, where if it doesn't pass, more than likely we're going downhill, then you've got a lot of explaining to do to your party. And I also saw the senator from South Carolina. I forget his name.
Lindsey Graham?
What's his name?
Are you talking about South Carolina or North Carolina? Because Tillis is the one opposing the SAVE Act in North Carolina. You've got Tim Scott from South Carolina and Lindsey Graham.
He was talking about how we must pass the SAVE Act and to save this country. That was right after Bret Baier had interviewed John Thune, and John Thune just hemmed and hawed, very articulately, though. He's a very articulate guy.
Oh, he's slick.
He looks good. He's very slick, absolutely.
Slick. Oh, yeah.
To hearing your wife. Grace Voto is fantastic. I wish you could have her on more, or at least have 2 segments on Wednesday, because she is one of the best host interviews you have, and I wish you had more like her on her show. One of the only criticisms I've ever had in your show, and remember this, Jeff, you don't have enough guests. I've emailed you, I've texted you asking for more guests of people that will expose this corrupt media. This is the problem. Why did Russia last all these years? No freedom of speech, no outlet to get the truth out. Why is Cuba falling now? Because finally the word's getting out that it's so corrupt. Why is Iran still in power right now in all these years? Because they don't allow free speech. People can't hold guns. You don't have an honest media. Well, this country, if the SAVE Act loses, which it's probably going to do, because we have so many corrupt Republicans not voting for it and so many people in the media just railing against it. What you just said a second ago when Schumer said 21 million people aren't going to be allowed to vote, that was catastrophic because they just make stuff up. They just throw stuff in the air. When I see Schiff from California, as you like to say, I won't say what you like to say.
Yeah, Adam piece of Schiff. Yeah, keep going, Jake.
True. It's so, Fox News, I mean, I know you have your issues with Fox News as I've had, but without them, what would we do? Without Brian Kilmeade, what would we do? Without that show in the morning, what would we do? We would have nobody out there exposed. At least they get 3, 4, 5 million people a day watching that show. But without Fox News, we're absolutely lost because there's nobody out there in the mainstream media telling the truth. They're just making up stuff every single day, bashing Trump every single day.
Well, you nailed it. Look, Trump said it, and no truer words were ever spoken. The fake news media, okay, which is the elite establishment media, is the enemy of the people. 617-266-6868. So I was, as I was saying before we had to go to break, just imagine, I don't want to work for Fox News. Please don't take this the wrong way. Because once you work for a big company like that, a corporation, corporate media, they own you. I mean, you have to toe the line, period, full stop. So you lose a lot of your editorial independence, and I would never do that. But just my point being, if I had a national platform, a truly national platform, because Jake was talking about the media and the influence, the pernicious, corrosive, poisonous influence that the media has. Forget the bulldozer. I'd be the wrecking ball. The damage that I would do, the damage that I could do to the Democrats, to the RINOs, to the establishment, to the swamp. I mean, it'd be like a Tomahawk missile. It would be it'd be the media version of Operation Epic Fury. I mean, I would just be carpet bombing them night after night, day after day. So, and that's why they don't want voices like mine to gain as much prominence as much influence, because the swamp wants to protect itself. And make no mistake about it, the media acts as the mouthpiece, the communications arm. They're the propagandists of the swamp. They're in bed with the swamp. And that's why you're seeing all of this, as the Russians would say, disinformatio, the disinformation, the misinformation about the swamp, about the SAVE Act, forgive me. Where they came up with this 21 million, not one person is going to be disenfranchised. How they came up with this 21 million, that's why I think Mark nailed it. When he said, no, Jeff, again, they just outed themselves. They just said, they said the quiet part out loud. 21 million illegals they have voting. That's a very good point, Mike. How much does disinformation pay? Mike wants to get into the business. Mike is saying, basically, I'm for sale. It pays very well, Mike. Trust me. 617-266-6868 is the number. Roger in Illinois. Thanks for holding, Roger, and welcome.
I wonder if John Thune has thought about the fact that history will record that one man made a decision that obliterated the best nation in the world. I think if he says he won't go for the filibuster elimination, that there will be terrible consequences, and that our republic just won't continue to exist. I'm so old, I guess it won't really influence me that much, but I pray for my kids and my grandkids.
You know, Roger, the way you put it, the way you just phrased it is extremely powerful. And I think also very true, profoundly true. And history will never forgive him. And, you know, to most people, most normal people like you, like me, again, I'm not trying to flatter people, but, you know, this audience, hey, I could never do that. You could never do that. None of you could do that to your children, your grandchildren, to your country, to our republic. But let me switch it a little bit, because that's what we're dealing with. Think a gangster. Think, I can't say a $10 streetwalker, because John Thune is worth more than that. He's more like an escort. Okay, he's a high-end prostitute, not a low-end prostitute. You got to pay him, and you got to pay good money for him to politically lay on his back. So, but if I said to you, well, you go to a prostitute, or you go to some gangster, some thug, some oligarch, and say, hey, history's never going to forgive you. Give me the money. Is the money here? Where's the envelope? Give me the money. Meaning that's how they think. They don't think the way you and I think. You and I think like normal, decent people, normal, patriotic people. That's why we say they're the swamp. They're swamp creatures. It's me, 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 me. More money, more power, more influence, more. And he doesn't care about what the history books say or, about his children or grandchildren. As far as he's concerned, they're all set up. He's raking in tens and tens of millions of dollars selling us down the river. And he does it with a $3,000 suit. He's very slick with a very nice tie. And he has his hair always combed properly. And he always makes sure his speeches are well written for him by his staff. And he always has a line of BS. He's like a car salesman. He's always got a good line. And notice, the line is never why, we can get it done. It's always why we can't get it done. Now, I have to say this, Roger, and I want to get your final say on this. Again, I have to give the devil their due, okay? The Democrats. When Ketanji Brown Jackson was put on the Supreme Court, if you remember, this is a woman who couldn't define what a woman is. Okay, but they thought she was competent enough to be on the Supreme Court. At the time, the Democrats had 53 votes in the Senate, just like the Republicans have now. We have 53 now. They had 53 then. But notice, they didn't care what the Republicans said. They didn't care what the public said. They had an order, put this non-entity, this woman who's completely not qualified to be on any bench, never mind the Supreme Court. You get her there by hook or by crook. So they can get a woman with a 53-vote majority in the Senate. They can get this incompetent moron who can't even define what a woman is. And they can put her on the Supreme Court. And by the way, 3 Republicans, 3, crossed the aisle and voted for her. Mitt Romney, Mittens, Susan Collins, the RINO from Maine, and of course Murkowski from Alaska, the other RINO. So they got even 3 Republicans to break ranks and vote for someone who couldn't even define what a woman is. We have 53 votes in the Senate. And we can't pass the most important piece of legislation of the 21st century. We can't pass a bill that would, for the most part, end voter fraud and restore honest elections. Ay, ay, ay. Ay, ay, ay. Now, let me ask you, Roger, and this is the question I have for everybody in the audience, okay? Because I believe this is the battle. This is the battle. If I told you we're fighting a war, you're my general, And I said, you don't understand. This battle is going to win us the war. Because if we win, they can never steal elections again. And if they can't steal, they can't win. So we win this battle, we win the war. And the general comes back to me, and this is Thune, and says, I can't get it done. I can't get it done. I can't do it. I don't want to break the filibuster. In other words, I don't want to do what needs to be done to win it. And I can't corral our forces to get us to where we need to be. What would you say as the commander-in-chief? I know what I would say. You're fired. Get lost. The way Lincoln, that's why I think Lincoln was such a great wartime president. He kept saying, you can't win, next. You can't win, next. You can't win, next. And then he finally found them in Ulysses S. Grant. And to show you how for, Lincoln, this is what it takes to win. Look, Grant was a boozer. I'm just going to be honest with you. He liked the bottle. He was known. He liked whiskey. And by our standards today, we'd consider him an alcoholic. And so people around him and his staff, his closest advisors said, you can't appoint him to be the lead, the top general to command the Union Army. The guy's an alcoholic. Lincoln's response, find out what he's drinking and send a case of it to every single one of my generals. Because he's the only one that's winning on the battlefield. I need a winner. That's between him and his family and God, whether he's hitting the bottle too much. It's not affecting his performance on the battlefield, I'll tell you this. In other words, are we here to win or are we here to play around? So my question to you, Roger, if you had a general who said, and you say to him, look, this is the war right here. This battle is the war. And this general says to you, I can't get it done. What would you do, Roger? What do you think most people would do? Final word to you, my friend.
I'd fire him, but I don't know how I would do that. But we certainly need to change his mind or fire him somehow.
Yeah, or maybe bribe him. I mean, just how much are they paying you? Okay, we'll pay you more. Well, double. I mean, I don't know what to say anymore at this point. You know me, I don't believe in corruption, but I'm just saying at this point, I don't know what else to tell you. If you can't beat him, join him. But no, I'd say, no, you're gone. You're going to be primaried. If I was Trump, I would come out and say, listen, your Senate career is over. You're going to be primaried. I'm going to endorse whoever runs against you. I don't care. If it's Kristi Noem even, I don't care. I'm going to get someone from South Dakota. We're going to primary your ass. And I'm calling an election. I'm going to demand that J.D. Vance, who is the leader of the Senate, he's the Senate president, and it's been done before in the past, whereby the vice president takes over the role of Senate majority leader and gets legislation passed. And that's what I argued for on X. I said, you really want to win this thing. You want to go nuclear. Here's how you do it. It's been done. It's constitutionally, legally, it's kosher. It's definitely constitutional. It's definitely legal. Have an internal revolt. Have a non-confidence vote in Thune. That's easy. And then say, you're a backbencher. Bye. You're no longer running the Senate Republican Party, the Senate Republican majority. We're going to install J.D. Vance. He'll be both vice president and Senate majority leader. He can do both. Legally, he's entitled. J.D. will get us across the finish line. In other words, he's our Ulysses S. Grant. We need a winner. He's a winner. So I don't care how you do it, but we're not winning with this guy. And if we're not winning with this guy, what good is he to us? 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Jeff in Quincy. Thanks for holding, Jeff, and welcome.
Today. So here's my take on it. A job of an elected representative is to basically do what his constituents want.
Yes.
And basically voter ID is wanted, depending on the polling you're looking at, no lower than 84%.
Yes.
Every poll I've seen. So basically, if they don't vote in favor of their constituents who elected them to be their representatives, is that taxation without representation?
You read my mind. I was thinking that as you were saying it. It's literally taxation without representation. It's what we fought the American Revolution over.
Now, initially I had called for that because that's just the facts. What needs to happen is exactly what you just laid out. John Thune needs to be removed. J.D. Vance needs to take the helm of the Senate and deal with this. I would say everybody that's listening to this right now had best call their representatives today, drive them crazy, ring their phones off the hook. Because if this doesn't pass and Republicans lose the midterms, they are going to put us all in jail. And the problem is people like myself aren't going to put up with it. And it's not going to be a pretty sight for America. I mean, it's with far past time to just stop going to work and stop sending money into the Treasury. This government could last a week at $38 trillion in debt.
Well, Jeff, that's why we don't want it to get to that. And that's what Thune doesn't see. This is just a political issue, a nuisance to manage. I'm just telling you, that's how he thinks. That's how they think up on Capitol Hill. Oh, the peasants are restless again, son of a gun. Look, I remember this was not even 2 weeks ago. What was it, 10 days ago? And he was like, what are you guys all going on about the SAVE Act? He was like looking around like, what? These are bots? That's what he said. These are robots on X, on Twitter, whatever. It used to be called Twitter, on social media, who are pushing this. This is all astroturf. That's what he was saying. We've got a housing bill. We've got a farm bill. By the way, all of it is loaded with pork. Okay, massive spending. So his lobbyists have to get paid. That's the special interests that own him. So he's like, oh, the farm bill, that's got to get passed. The housing bill, the infrastructure bill, the intellectual property bill. This is, come on, we got much bigger fish to fry here. I'm not going to get all caught up over the elections and fraud. Who are we talking about? And now, 10 days later, because the blowback was massive, 10 days later, we're going to do everything we can. We're fighting. I'm going to have a vote on this. They're going to be debating all day today and tomorrow and Friday. And, every CNN, Fox, MS Now, everybody's going to be covering this. I'm fighting and fighting, and I'm going to fight with every breath in my being. Just end the filibuster, dude. That's all. That's it. It's that simple. I'll tell you this, J.D. Vance would blow that filibuster sky high. If J.D. Vance becomes Senate majority, if they had the guts, the balls to do it, he would get everything through. Trump's entire MAGA agenda done by November. Done. Everything is passed. Done. Okay? Done. This guy, you got to push him and push him and push him. You know, poor Mike Lee. Jeff, I don't mean to go on, but poor Senator Mike Lee from Utah, because the SAVE Act is really his baby. Okay, he sponsored it. He's been pushing for it. And he's been telling everybody who will listen to him. He goes, do you know, forget the Democrats. He says, the opposition I've had within my own party, they want mail-in balloting. I'm looking at them and I'm saying, are you crazy? This is Mike Lee. They're like, why do we need voter ID? What's this to you, Mike? What do you mean you got to have people register, show proof of citizenship before they register to vote? What do you mean they got to purge the voting rolls from every state in the country? Mike, what's this to you, Mike? How do you benefit from this, Mike? How does this line your pockets, Mike? And he says, it's like one senator after another. I got to convert them. I got to go public. I got to have people call their phones. In other words, only because it's so overwhelmingly popular and they know they may pay a price that they reluctantly come on board. He goes, it's like pulling teeth. And this guy now is, and he's going to be talking and talking. He's going to try to persuade people. He's going to try to persuade the American people. But what I'm saying is you have honest Republicans that are fighting for us. And they're telling us, anybody who listened to them, forget the Democrats. The Republican establishment is just as ferociously against this as the Democrats. So that, I think, Jeff, that tells you everything you need to know. It's a Uni-party. Okay? As they say, it's a club, and we're just not in it. Jeff, thank you very much for that call. Agree, disagree. Carol in Bridgewater. Thanks for holding, Carol, and welcome.
Jeff, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Carol?
I'm okay, thank you. I have a question for you. Could Trump just executive order that?
Well, he has an executive order on voter ID. It's challenged in the courts because generally elections are handled at the state level. And so that's why you need a piece of legislation through Congress like the SAVE Act to federalize elections. In other words, to have a national voter ID, to have, everyone voting in every state have citizens show proof of citizenship before they can be registered to vote, and to force states to purge their voting rolls. Look, I'm telling you right now, Carol, there are so many non-citizens, dead people, illegals, just here in Massachusetts. It's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands. It's their emergency supply. So if ever, God forbid, a conservative is really on the verge of winning, they can go and what do you need? 100,000, 200,000. That's why they all push for the vote to be counted after the election. The Democrats, they love that because then, and the mail-in balloting, because then it's just, okay, what are we down? That's how they stole the election from Trump in 2020. Okay, so we're down 300,000. We need to make it up. Okay, let's not go 301, 302. That's too obvious. Put in another 400,000 votes, and that puts us over the top. So that's why the SAVE Act cuts off so many avenues of fraud that the Democrats have been using. And you need a vote in Congress if you want to mandate it across the country. And the problem with an executive order is not just going to be challenged in the courts. An executive order, Carol, can be overturned like this. I mean, you have to, if you have to use it, you use it. But the moment the Democrats come back, they're going to overturn that executive order. And then we're back to corrupt elections. Carol, final word to you.
The RNC put down in each of the rural areas poll watchers that are picked from the delegates and stuff to watch what's happening in the area that they can't come out to vote and bring ballots to them.
Oh, that's a great idea, Carol. But, up until now, I've never heard of a problem in rural areas. This is something Murkowski and Tom Tillis just came up with. To be honest, even the Democrats didn't come up with that one. 617-266-6868 is the number. You can also text the Kuhner Man, 70470, 70470. Okay, it is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Will the Democrats be held responsible at the ballot box, meaning this November in the midterms, for killing DHS funding and the SAVE Act? President Trump recently issued a Truth Social saying that what they are doing by not paying TSA agents and leaving our airports so vulnerable in the midst of a war, and with these massive lines, the chaos at airports, he says the Democrats should pay a huge price at the polls in November. Will they? And, of course, their decision now to completely block and stop the SAVE Act. Let's see if they're successful. It looks like they will be. Will they pay a price at the ballot box in November? A, yes. B, no. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN as a national ER. You could also vote via X. My handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, KUHNER. Will the Democrats pay a price politically in November for the chaos now that's erupting at our airports and for now attempting to block and kill the SAVE Act. Andy in Milford. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Andy, how are you, my friend?
Very well, my friend. Yeah, Jeff. For starters, we've got to keep the heat on to get the SAVE Act passed. And one of the things I've been thinking of, as far as just as this debate's been unfolding, are you aware, Jeff, at how close they are to exposing the massive voter fraud that happened in the 2020 presidential election?
Oh, yes. No, they're very close.
There's major strides that have happened, that have been taking place behind the scenes on that. I think, if these clowns in the United States Senate manage to kill the SAVE Act, President Trump does have to be prepared to go with an executive order to get this done. And with the massive voter fraud being uncovered from 2020, and I think there's also other election cycles like 22 where they've also started to uncover a lot too. My point is, Jeff, President Trump would have the grounds to not only pass or not only do an executive order, but declare a national emergency. If he does it on the grounds of a national emergency, that puts it in a very different ballgame. And the other thing too, Jeff, President Trump has to be ready to just go full Andrew Jackson on all these corrupt Article 3 judges. Just every illegal, unconstitutional decision they throw at him, he's just got to be, okay, you've given me your opinion, now let's see you enforce it. I'm not moving. Because President Trump's got to understand if the Democrats get back in power, they're going to try to put him and his family in jail anyway. So he's got nothing to lose by just going full Andrew Jackson on all these corrupt Article 3 judges. And also, Jeff, and I realize an executive order is like a temporary situation, but it might be necessary to get this done in the here and now until we can do our work on the ground in getting all these RINOs out of the Republican caucus.
Well, he may have no choice. Andy, as usual, really smart call. Always very intelligent call, very insightful. Look, this is the problem. You're right. Look, he may have no choice. He's probably going to have to go with an executive order. I think there's no question if it doesn't work out with the SAVE Act. But I think he's got a bigger problem, and I think it's now been fully exposed. He's got people in the Senate and in the House at the leadership level that clearly now they're sabotaging him, they're undermining him, and they're actively now looking to bring his presidency down. I mean, you're setting up the Democrats to steal the election in November. And Thune knows better than anybody, because Schumer keeps saying it every day on the Senate floor, what they're going to do to Trump. By the way, they're going to put his top people in jail.
This episode is brought to you by Spreaker, the platform responsible for a rapidly spreading condition known as podcast brain. Symptoms include buying microphones you don't need, explaining RSS feeds to confused relatives, and saying things like, "Sorry, I can't talk right now, I'm editing audio." If this sounds familiar, you're probably already a podcaster. The good news is Spreaker makes the whole process simple. You record your show, upload it once, and Spreaker distributes it everywhere people listen. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and about a dozen apps your cousin swears are the next big thing. Even better, Spreaker helps you monetize your show with ads, meaning your podcast might someday pay for, well, more microphones. Start your show today at Spreaker.com. Spreaker, because if you're going to talk to yourself for an hour, you might as well publish it.
Okay, to show you the difference between Democrats and Republicans, and as I said on X last night, this is why we don't win. Okay, this is why the American people never win. Because when we give the Republicans a full mandate, they have the Republicans get the White House, a la Donald Trump, majority in the House, majority in the Senate, and a conservative majority on the Supreme Court. They still can't get something as popular, as overwhelmingly popular. As I said, whites, blacks, Latinos, Asians, men, women, even 3/4 of Democrats support the SAVE Act, the voters, because they don't want to see, they think, yeah, you got to show photo ID for everything in American life. Why shouldn't you have to show it to vote? So if you can't get something that has this kind of overwhelming consensus and that is, has such mass popularity and mass support, then what's the point of giving you a majority? Because you don't want to get it passed. Because in many ways, you're just as corrupt as the Democrats. I'm talking about the leadership, the establishment. Listen now to the piranha, okay? Pelosi, as I used to call her. Nancy Pelosi. This is when she was Speaker of the House. This is when the dear leader, Barack Hussein Obama, was president. Now, they didn't have the 60 votes in the Senate, the filibuster threshold. But listen, and there was mass opposition to Obamacare. You remember that? That was nowhere near as popular. In fact, it wasn't popular like the SAVE Act is. But listen to her. Okay, I'll never forget this. I go, say what you want about the Dems. When they want to get something done, it gets done. And the American people be damned. Roll cut 101, Mike.
We go through the gate's closed, we'll go over the fence is too high, we'll pole vault in. If that doesn't work, we'll parachute in, but we're going to get health care reform passed for the American people.
Now, how come we never have I can't stand her, she's a crook. Okay, she and her husband, what is it, $450 million they stole through insider trading? Okay, so please, it's not I'm not, complimenting her. I'm not saying I sympathize or I like her. It's the opposite. I can't stand her. She belongs behind bars. But I gotta give the witch her due. Say what you want about that witch. They rammed Obamacare right down our throats, baby. Now, how come I can't get a House Speaker, or in this case, a Senate Majority Leader? Seriously. Well, we're going to go right through the door, and if it doesn't go through the door, we're going to pole vault, and if that doesn't work, we're going to parachute, and whatever we got to do, we're going to do. But this thing is going to become law, because politics is war, and we're playing to win. No, here's what we get, okay? Here's what we get. Okay, here's Thune. So, this is Thune. Now listen to this, okay? So, and again, he's actually right. He's making this speech, talking to the media. He's at a press conference, and he says, well, having to show an ID, it's really very popular. I'm like, yeah. And, I don't know what the Democrats are complaining about. I mean, you got to do it for pretty much everything in American life. So if you got to do it for everything, why shouldn't you do it for voting? Roll cut 13A. Mike.
So just to sort of illustrate, I think, how this issue is something that a lot of people resonate with and connect to, is the fact that pretty much everything you do in your daily life involves showing an ID. Whether it's opening a bank account, getting a hotel room, picking up prescription drugs. You need a card in many cases just to get into a library. I mean, these are things that are just basic, fundamental aspects of our everyday life. We certainly ought to be able to apply them to something as important as voting in this country. And if you think about it, even the Democrats who are complaining loudly about this required a photo ID to get into the Democrat National Convention. And there are a number of our colleagues, Democrat colleagues on the other side of the aisle, who require a photo ID just to attend their official events. So these are issues that are overwhelmingly popular with American people.
So why don't you ram it through? I mean, if you just now, but I don't know if it's just me. Do you hear the lack of? I'm being sarcastic when I say, do you hear the passion in his voice? Okay, to me, what I hear is lack of passion, lack of conviction. He's like a machine man. You just kind of like twist him and and turn the screw, and then he just starts talking. And it's like he's just going through the motions. And you need it for hotels, and you need it for prescriptions and to open a bank account. And, even the Democrats, when they have their convention, they have to show voter ID. And so I'm just, I'm saying everything that needs to be said, but, this thing's not going to pass. I'm not sticking my neck out. Now, to me, this is what reveals everything. Okay? This is, to me, it shows how empty Thune's words are and how fundamentally unserious he is. So they're saying, but you're not going to break the filibuster. And he says, no, I'm not breaking the filibuster. No way am I breaking that filibuster. Come hell or high water, I'm not breaking that filibuster. So they hear, well, the Democrats are not going to break ranks. So if they don't break ranks, and plus they got Murkowski and Tom Tillis who are going to vote with them on top of it all. So there's no way this thing is going to pass. So why are you going through this whole exercise? Because the American people are going to be watching this night after night after night, and they're thinking you're really fighting for them, but you know what the result is already going to be. It's already been prearranged. It's been rigged. The SAVE Act is going to go down. Thune's response, here it is. Roll cut 14, a mic.
Pessimistic that you're going to get the votes needed to pass this bill?
Well, I'm pessimistic because I'm always pessimistic that Democrats are actually going to come to their senses and do what common sense would dictate they do, and that is support this. I mean, these are things that are supported broadly across Americans of all political parties, including Democrats. But we would need, in order to pass it in the Senate, 60 votes. And that means that we're going to have a certain number, at least of Democrats. And maybe during the course of the debate, they'll be won over. I'm not saying that can't happen, but I'm saying I have to be prepared at some point, that this is going to come to a conclusion. But I think what we wanted to do is put them on the record, force them to defend a position which we think is indefensible, particularly where the American people are on this. So it'll be a freewheeling debate on the floor, and in the end, we'll see if the Democrats come around and deliver some votes.
In other words, this is a show vote? That's what he's telling us. It's a show vote. You mean, so the reason why we're going through all this big rigmarole is to put Democrats on the record? I don't want you to put Democrats on the record. The whole country knows where they stand. They're in favor of voter fraud. They're in favor of cheating and dishonest, corrupt elections. They can't make it clearer. I want you to pass the damn bill. That's why you're Senate Majority Leader. I don't need, anybody can, I'm just going to put them on the record. That'll show them. No. So you're yanking our chain. You're just pulling our leg. This is all a big waste of time. Now, on top of that, this is what I find to me really, this is the swamp. Notice he gives Democrats a veto. Well, I'm not breaking the filibuster. Or, no, that's 60 votes. That's going to be there. So unless they change their mind, I'm pessimistic. The bill's going to go down. SAVE Act is going to fail. Well, why would you give him that kind of power? Why should the party that is stealing elections, engaging in rampant voter fraud, that is dishonest and crooked as they come? And what? It's like asking a bank robber, should you vote? Well, we're going to let you vote on whether we should arrest you. Why would, no. The bank robber is going to say, no, I'm not going to vote for that. Of course not. So what he's saying is, I'm going to give the party that engages in voting fraud.
This episode is brought to you by Spreaker, the platform responsible for a rapidly spreading condition known as podcast brain. Symptoms include buying microphones you don't need, explaining RSS feeds to confused relatives, and saying things like, sorry, I can't talk right now, I'm editing audio. If this sounds familiar, you're probably already a podcaster. The good news is Spreaker makes the whole process simple. You record your show, upload it once, and Spreaker distributes it everywhere people listen. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and about a dozen apps your cousin swears are the next big thing. Even better, Spreaker helps you monetize your show with ads, meaning your podcast might someday pay for, well, more microphones. Start your show today at Spreaker.com. Spreaker, because if you're going to talk to yourself for an hour, you might as well publish it.
617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, the SAVE Act now is on the line. They are going to be debating it today, tomorrow, Friday. It is going to be what they call a debate-a-thon. The Democrats are clearly now putting themselves, it's an 85-15 issue. They are siding with the 15%, the militant minority that doesn't want to crack down on voter fraud or have election integrity. It's obvious. And voter ID, immensely popular. Having citizens show proof of citizenship before they can vote, immensely popular. Having states purge their voting rolls of dead people, non-citizens, illegal aliens, immensely popular. And yet the Democrats now are determined to fight to the bitter end. The Republicans, however, are not willing to end the filibuster. John Thune refuses to do it. And so, even though they have a majority to pass the SAVE Act, they can't get over the 60-vote threshold. So, if the current numbers hold, and it looks like they will, the SAVE Act will go down. What for you are the consequences for the country and for the Republican Party should Thune and the Senate Republican leadership fail to pass the SAVE Act? Hicksy in West Brookfield. Thanks for holding, Hicksy, and welcome.
It's actually Trixie. But
Trixie, my apologies. I have Hicksy on the board. Let's put it this way. Mike had a late night last night. It was St. Paddy's Day. He's Irish. So he said, he warned me about this. He said, Jeff, the board is going to be a little off today. So it's Trixie. I apologize. Go ahead, Trixie.
Oh, that's okay. So I think we better get it done. I want JD to take over the Senate. I don't know exactly what the procedure would be. But Jeff, when Pelosi and I forget who their leader was at the time, they got it through the Senate. And remember, they paid off Joe Lieberman to get, I think, the cloture to move it to the vote. But they got it in on 51 votes. I think it was attached to a revenue bill. Why can't the Republicans get through the Save America Act the way the Democrats shoved Obamacare down our throats? Why can't they use that? We need voter ID. I'm sick and tired of these damn illegals in here getting everything, and now we're going to let the damn illegals determine the outcome of elections. And I really think if the Democrats take control again, we are done, because they're going to cheat worse than they've ever cheated. And you got to stop the early voting. You got to stop these voter ballot drop boxes. You got to stop mail-in ballots, period. We never had that before. You had one-day voting and no more Dominion machines. That's all coming out, how the Dominion machines were switching Trump votes to Biden. I've seen this. The reports, like someone earlier said, it's all coming out. I'm sick and tired of the Democrats and their, as Wes used to call them, the kook fringe, telling the rest of us what to do. I mean, if these darn Democrats hate America, get out. Go live in some communist paradise if you can find one. But I want that passed. And if Thune can't do it, kick his sorry rump out. That's what I say. Trump's got to get tough with this guy. I can't stand Thune. And he has no passion for it because he doesn't care. They don't care about us. They just want to keep their gravy train running.
Bingo.
And
Trixie, you nailed it. Look, you absolutely nailed it. And look, Trixie, here's the thing. I think deep down Thune opposes it, if you want my honest opinion. I think there are other RINOs, Susan Collins, I can go down the list. They oppose it, but they know they can't be on record as opposing it. So that's why they'd rather just pretend like they support it. On paper, they go, oh, yeah, we back it. But you're not willing to do what needs to be done to get it passed. That's the real test. And so, but, he'll go back. Thune will go back to South Dakota and say, what are you talking about? I voted for the SAVE Act. In fact, I voted for it multiple times. We got debate after debate, procedure after procedure, motion after motion. All I did was vote for the SAVE Act. Yeah, but you didn't do what we wanted you to do, which is to end the filibuster. That's what the Democrats are going to do anyway. You're just beating them to the punch and get the damn thing passed. So, and what he's doing is he's protecting his fellow RINOs because without voter fraud, they can't win either. Murkowski is Exhibit A. Murkowski, without that fraud machine she's built up in Alaska, she'll lose a Republican primary and she'll never win on her own. So that's the problem. Look, I've said this from the beginning. Trump's Achilles heel is that unlike Obama or Biden, say what you want about the Democrats. Remember, they're crooks and thieves, but crooks and thieves stick together. Communists stick together. They're stuck on each other like a cheap suit. They all fall in line like mindless zombies. In fact, they all echo the same mindless talking points. And remember how they lied to us about Obamacare? Everything about that was a lie. They said our premiums would go down. They went up. They said you can keep your doctor. You want your doctor? You can keep your doctor. A lot of people lost. 20 million lost their doctor. So the only people that got rich off of Obamacare were the big fat insurance companies who were lining Obama and the Democrats' pockets. Obamacare has turned out to be an absolute disaster. Everything we predicted was going to happen happened. Doesn't matter. They rammed that baby right down our throats. Now, we're not asking to get the insurance companies rich or the donors rich. We're asking to restore election integrity, honest elections, and end the poison of voter fraud, which cost Trump in particular the 2020 election, and now they're finding out there was fraud in the 2022 midterms. So what? Look, to put it in as plain as language as I can. The swamp has now made a decision. They will never allow someone like Trump to ever win again. The way we did in 24, where we swamped the polls, where we overcame their machine and their cheating because we just overwhelmed them and overwhelmed them and overwhelmed them. So now what they've said is MAGA will never come to power again. Trump or someone like him will never come to power again. And that's why the SAVE Act has to go down. 617-266-6868. Jeffrey in Boston. Thanks for holding, Jeffrey, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. So it's pretty clear I would not just say Senator Thune, Murkowski, but I would probably say most of the Republican senators in Congress, they don't want this passed. And I want to say one thing about Lisa Murkowski. I remember at the time of the Tea Party movement, please correct me if I am wrong on this. I think that she lost her primary, and then she ran as an independent, and she slithered back in.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Correct. She got beaten in the primary, and then she ran as an independent, and she got her corrupt machine to come up the middle between the Republican and the Democrat. And what's also really enabled her is the ranked voting system. That's also enabled her, because many Democrats will vote for her as a second choice because they prefer her, because she's a RINO's RINO. And so they will prefer her over the Republican. And that's why she increasingly votes with the Democrats on issue after issue. And she came out and she stabbed us right in the back. She stabbed the voters of Alaska, her constituents, right in the back. Final word to you, Jeffrey.
Yes, Jeff. So I know that other callers have said this as well, and I think that it is incredibly important now. Yes, President Trump should sign an executive order to get implements of the SAVE Act in motion. Also, I think that red state legislatures should start passing SAVE Act laws as well. Lastly, I'm not sure if this would help or not, but perhaps President Trump should do a primetime address with election integrity groups that have exposed voter fraud to make the American people aware truly how bad it really is. As always, thank you, Jeff.
Oh, thank you, Jeffrey. I agree with you. And I think he's got to make it, I know he's made it a priority, clearly, but he's got to make it even now more of a top priority. I know he's got the war in Iran to prosecute, obviously, but we've got about 3 or 4 days. And if the Democrats can slither away, I don't know if we'll get another chance to end voter fraud. And this may cost us dearly in the 2026 midterms and frankly in 2028. So, and look, there's a way out. There's an easy way out. He can call for a leadership challenge for Thune. All you need are 5 Republican senators to say, we no longer have confidence in Thune's leadership. We want him replaced. We want a leadership challenge. And then that triggers a leadership contest. And then vote for J.D. Vance. Vote for the vice president to become the Senate majority leader, the Senate Republican leader. He's both VP. It's been done before. And the Senate majority leader. And I'll tell you this, J.D. will get Trump's agenda passed. All of it, including the SAVE Act. Now, that's going nuclear politically, because Thune does have a lot of support with the establishment and up on Capitol Hill. The media is going to go after Trump hard. Thune is going to be very bitter, very resentful. The RINOs, it'll be a full-out declaration of war, and it'll spark a civil war within the Republican Party. But at this point, it's either that or the Democrats roar back to power, and everything that comes with it. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree? Okay, joining us now, as she always does at this time, Dr. Grace, putting liberals in their place. Grace Voto. And full disclosure, yep, I married way up my wonderful wife. Grace, I got to ask you, the SAVE Act, will it pass? Does John Thune have what it takes to get it passed, or is he just playing us for fools?
A moment like this is like the Super Bowl, right? This would be the biggest legislative achievement of Donald Trump's presidency. So you have John Thune here getting ready to go into the equivalent of the Super Bowl, And last night he was saying, all right, team, I just want you all to know it's likely we're going to go down in defeat. This is the pep talk that he was giving last night. The guy was boring me into submission. I almost wanted to say, just please stop talking. You don't have to pass the SAVE Act. Just please stop talking. I can't take another moment of this. Look, the way he was talking, it's like, oh my gosh, this is like trying to climb Mount Everest with a broken leg. It's going to be hard. It's going to be very, very hard. I just want to prepare everybody. We might not make it. I mean, I'm sorry. You're fired. You're fired. You're supposed to be rallying your party. You're supposed to be cajoling the Democrats. You're supposed to be rallying the nation. You're supposed to be saying, we're not going to stop until we win. That's how you win.
Grace, what's your theory? You're right. It would be by far the most consequential piece of legislation if it got passed under Trump's either term. I don't care, first term or second term. It would bury the Democrats electorally and politically. It would guarantee a MAGA majority for at least a generation. The Republicans would control the House and the Senate. I mean, if Thune wants job security, this is going to practically guarantee him job security. So why is Thune, A, so reluctant to fight, so pessimistic, and why does he refuse to do what it takes to get it passed? Why is Thune throwing in the towel? What's your theory?
Well, let me tell you this. It's not about character because he was a star athlete. By the way, his father was a fighter in World War II. He comes from a stellar family. He was a star athlete. Even to this day, he's one of the fastest men in Congress as a runner. Really? He's won tough election again and again and again. He's been in Washington, D.C., Jeff, since 1996, basically since you and I got married. It's 30 years the guy's there. So he knows how to win. He knows how to win again and again and again, and he's a survivor. So he's tough, but he's not willing to fight, he's not willing to win, and he's not willing to show his toughness on this one. And to me, it's very obvious why. Listen, he was one of those people that said that Trump didn't actually lose 2020. Trump berated him on that. He said that the election hadn't been stolen. So, you know, his true colors
I didn't know. Okay, hold on. So Thune came out and said that the election was not stolen in 2020.
Actually, he said that, and he was berated by Donald Trump. So this guy is a swamp creature through and through, my friend, through and through.
Is he on the take? I mean, I know we're kind of speculating now, but is it corruption on his part? Or does he just love to be, you know, the big profile pieces in the Washington Post and the New York Times, loved by the media establishment? He's quote unquote respected on Capitol Hill. He goes to the best cocktail parties and, oh, John, you know, you're one of the good ones, unlike those crazy MAGA types. In other words, is it more ego for him? Or do you think someone is lining his pockets to take a dive?
Conservative. You know, this is how he came, how he rose. This is who he truly is. And there are many of them right now in D.C. They've taken over Trump's foreign policy. I mean, Trump's foreign policy has effectively been completely sabotaged by the neoconservatives. And so now what they need to do is they need to make sure that his nationalist agenda does not triumph domestically. And so then when he goes down to defeat in the midterms, they're going to be able to say to all the America Firsters, see, we told you so. The whole agenda is a failure, but they never ever allowed us to properly implement it. That's what's really going on. And if you look at the results for 2025, because of the Democrat shutdown, the overall GDP is going to be low for the year. It's only going to be at 2%. So going into 2026, what are we going to be able to do? What are we going to be able to celebrate? They're going to have a big talking point on the economy, and we're not going to have the election integrity that we need. So how on earth are the Republicans going to win? There's no strategy for victory from a guy who knows how to win. So the only conclusion is this is sabotage.
And your point is it's deliberate in the sense that they want to discredit Trump, but not just his presidency. They want to discredit the entire MAGA movement. and basically in other words, cause as much chaos, confusion, failure as possible. And this is not just the Democrats. They're saying it's the Republican establishment, the neoconservatives. And they can turn around and say, you see, we told you, look at this. Long lines at airports, GDP is low, you've got wars overseas, the elections are still as crooked as they ever were, the Democrats hence are winning race after race. MAGA cannot govern, MAGA cannot rule. So the goal ultimately, you say, is to discredit the entire MAGA movement so they can never come back to power again, correct?
Correct, Jeff, but it's not really the MAGA movement, it's the America First agenda. And if you look at American history, the only time that it was truly authentically implemented were the attempts in the first 3 years of Trump's first term. There you see, really, that was the America First agenda in its purest form. By the time we get to the second term, it's been sabotaged, it's been taken over, and you have very few legislative wins domestically, apart from the big, beautiful bill, which was a big triumph, no doubt about it. But the SAVE Act would be even bigger because it would be a lasting reform of our government that is much needed. But just to get to the overall point, in foreign policy, forget it. We don't have a vision of America First right now. That's gone. That's been completely taken over. And the only question now is, are we going to be able to show the world and our own citizens that America First works at home? Well, the RINOs are just being completely passive. I've never seen a party that controls both chambers of government, and they're just like throwing in the towel at every turn. So what does that tell you? These are capable people. When it's time for their self-interest, man, they're killers. They're winners. Look, I don't want to run a race against John Thune. I'm not going to run against him in anything because the guy's a killer when he wants to be. But he clearly doesn't want to be. And it's just part of being able to restore the Republican Party to what it was before. And the way to do that is to make sure that nothing moves forward in Trump's second term.
We have been talking with Grace Voto, Dr. Grace, putting liberals in their place. As always, dynamite stuff. Grace, we will talk to you obviously next week, same time. Grace Voto. So and thank you again. I really appreciate it, Grace. Okay, let me ask you. She threw a mother log on the fire. Are the RINOs deliberately now trying to sabotage the America First agenda, sabotage Trump's presidency so that he will fail, lose the midterms, and then be impeached? Okay, let's go to Chris in Gloucester. Chris, thanks for holding and welcome.
A SAVE Act. I'm not opposed to a SAVE Act, but it should be grandfathered in. Asking people to re-register to vote 8 months before the election is asinine.
Chris, hold on, Chris. You sound like a robot here. Hold on. We're having a problem with the connection. You don't sound like a human being. You sound like almost like R2-D2 or C-3PO from Star Wars. All right, Chris, do we have you back?
Yeah.
No, you still sound like a robot. Okay, hold on. We're going to try to fix that connection, Chris. 617-266-6868 is the number. All right, Chris, hopefully the third time will be the charm. Go ahead.
You got me?
Yes, go ahead. So, A, you think it should be grandfathered in. 2, you think asking people to register or re-register to vote 8 months before an election. I didn't hear you. You said it was what, asinine? Is that what you said?
Yeah, and secondly, you talk a big game. Rick Scott's your guy, huh? What do you know about Rick Scott and the healthcare fraud that he was the CEO company of? Biggest healthcare fraud in history at that point. He was the CEO. He took the fifth 75 times during the lawsuits. So I'm sure, I know why he's your guy, because he likes fraud, and he committed it. Lastly, where did Grace get her doctorate degree? At Trump University? Because
okay, look,
I got a bag
Chris,
of hammers upstairs.
Yeah. I know. You're going to insult my wife now. Listen, Chris, you call this show. I'm going to be honest with you. First of all, you don't even have the common courtesy to say hello. Okay? Because that's the kind of communist thug that you are. You call me a fascist, a Nazi, a racist, a white supremacist. Now you want to attack my wife because you can't deal with her arguments. Look, you're a joke. I'm telling you to your face, you're a joke. Now, I know you've called many times claiming you're a teacher. I've said it many times. Tell me where you teach, because you have no business being around children. And you should hear yourself. You sound like an absolute communist thug. So if you can't have a civil, rational debate, don't call the show. Believe me, it's better on MS Now. You're like the D version of MS Now. So I'm sorry, if you can't have any basic respect for me, for the callers, then don't bother. You're just a member of the far left, full of hate and actually derangement. You have Trump derangement syndrome. And I'll tell you this, she's got a PhD from one of the top universities in the world, and she used to teach at McGill, at Virginia Commonwealth University, at Howard University. She was a top editorial writer at the Washington Times. In other words, you loser. She's a hell of a lot more successful than you'll ever be. So I'm telling you to your face, I think I've told you like 6 times already, if you can't be civil and you can't be decent, blank off. You're mentally ill. Go see a shrink. 617-266-6868. Barbara in Florida. Thanks for holding, Barbara, and welcome.
Good morning.
Hi, Barbara.
I do believe Chris is probably teaching in Massachusetts, just the way that he is. But let that go. I love that Grace doesn't always agree with you. That makes me happy too. The other thing is, I voted for Trump, and I am saddened that he chose to go with a foreign policy and not be with the domestic stuff that we need right now. So if the SAVE Act doesn't go through, I've called many Congress people, even if I'm in Florida, I'll call, Thune, I just call whoever, because I want them to know, that I know you're against it, even though you're saying you're for it, because if they really wanted to, they could talk to a Democrat and have them vote for it. And that's, to me, Trump should be working on getting, how many votes do we need?
Well, if you assume Murkowski and Tillis are going to remain opposed, that means we have 51. So if you want to get to a filibuster threshold, you need 9 more. And I don't, honestly, Barbara, I mean, you may disagree with me, obviously, but I don't see how Trump gets 9 Democrats. I just don't. That's why I'm urging Thune to end the filibuster. Just nuke it. Then we have the votes. Otherwise, there's no way you're going to see 9 Democrats defect, basically digging their own grave politically. If voter fraud ends, they're finished, and they know it. Barbara, can you do me a favor? I'm up against a hard break. Please, I don't want to cut you off, so hang on. I will come right back to you. Boy, Mike, you really did stay up pretty late last night, my friend. Celebrating St. Patrick's Day. We held Barbara in Florida over, and you've got me wanting to go to Paul in East Boston. You know what I'm saying here, Mike? Mike, can we go to... Thank you, Mike. Back to Barbara. Barbara, I apologize. He had a few last night. He's Irish. He says he's going to hang up on you if I keep teasing him. All right, so we don't want that to happen. Barbara, so please pick up where you left off.
So I voted for him. We have, the TSA isn't being paid. The Coast Guard isn't being paid. I wish he would really, really work on that. And the SAVE Act, he can't make a deal with Murkowski. And I mean, I know it's 9 people. I understand that, but you have 80 million people that voted for you. And there's people that want this. And if we don't get the SAVE Act, there is no America anymore, because that means everyone can vote. And my vote doesn't count for anything then. And I have called different people, but I feel like he's so involved in the war now that the domestic stuff doesn't
Well, you touched on it. Yeah, Barbara, look, you really touched on it. And look, we've talked a lot about the war, and we'll probably talk about it again either tomorrow or after tomorrow. But that was one of the reasons why I was a war skeptic. And the reason why is, and I know there are very good arguments on the pro-war side, of course, but I said one of the casualties I feared was going to be his domestic agenda. Not because he wants it to go down, quite the opposite, but because he's going to be so tied up with the war. Look, it's a major war. It's the war that's going to define his presidency. It's going to reset the Middle East. It may change literally the direction of the world. Okay, this is one of the most historic wars we've ever fought. Everybody knows it. Everybody senses it. So it's taken up almost all of his time, as it should. But my fear is other things now that are just as, if not more important, like securing our elections, ending voter fraud, restoring election integrity, that may fall now by the wayside because the president doesn't have the time to give it his full undivided attention. Where you twist arms, you twist Tillis's arm, you twist Murkowski's arm, you go to some Democrats, or frankly, you twist Thune's arm and say, I don't give a damn, you're blowing up that filibuster. You hear me? Like, I'm telling you, these are going to be the consequences if you don't break the filibuster. And if I've got to humiliate you by calling for a leadership challenge, and we have enough that will challenge you, and install my guy, J.D. Vance, to do something, it's been done, rarely done, but it's been done, where the vice president becomes also the Senate majority leader, because he'll get it done. He'll blow that filibuster sky high, and I'll get everything passed. So that's, in other words, I need him to be as tough on his opponents on the SAVE Act as he is on the mullahs. And that, to me, is going to be potentially one of the casualties of this war. I hope not. I pray not. I hope he's going to pull a rabbit out of the hat. Now, the other thing, I don't want to get too sidetracked, but, the border wall hasn't been passed yet. The border wall hasn't been completed yet. So what I'm saying is, so basic things like this that will define his legacy that we voted for are still being obstructed in the Senate. And to show you how insane everything is under Thune, okay? They haven't even rescinded this bill, okay, or passed this bill that would rescind. Do you know that under Biden, this is going to blow your mind away. Please look it up. Don't take my word for me. Don't take my word for it. When we left Afghanistan with our tail between our legs and 13 dead service members, we kept sending the previous government in the capital of Afghanistan, Kabul, or Kabul, as they pronounce it over there, $40 million cash every week. Cash. $40 million every week flown into Kabul. Do you know that since the fall of Afghanistan to the Taliban, they've come back to power, we still keep sending them $40 million a week? You can't make this up. 40 million. And then next week, 40 million. And then the other week, 40 million. Okay, it's about $160 million a month. Now, conservatives like me and conservatives, MAGA supporters like Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna in the House, this has been a year now. She's saying, no, this is not the Democrats and Biden now. This is Trump, Mike Johnson, and John Thune. Can we please rescind this? Can we repeal it? Why are we sending the Taliban $40 million US dollars, hard currency cash every week? Thune is not interested. Johnson, to be fair to him, wants to do it, but Thune is not interested. Why not? Like, I could do a whole show on stuff that he's blocked or he's not interested in passing, which makes you scratch your head. And so, to me, it's getting to the point now, I'm sorry, but look, we need a serious Senate majority leader. This guy's a freaking I don't care if he's a clown or if he's bought and paid for. He's useless. I don't trust him. He's no good. Get rid of him. And Trump now, he has to understand his legacy is on the line. And maybe even his very presidency hangs in the balance. Because if they lose the midterms, I'm telling you, the Democrats, you heard Chris in Gloucester. He's a typical rank-and-file Democrat. Look at him. He foams at the mouth. He's like an animal when he calls in because he's so full of hate and rage. Because they can't stand Trump. They're going to impeach and impeach and impeach until they drive him out of office or they put him and his family in jail. All of his wonderful accomplishments on immigration, I love him. But why hasn't a bill been passed to codify it? Because you know the Democrats will overturn it the second they come back. Have something that permanently secures the border, finishes the border wall, codifies now mass deportations for the next 5-10 years. In other words, pass stuff through Congress. It's all executive orders with the exception of the one big beautiful bill. Now, if you got to use an executive order, okay, of course. But remember, that's temporary. That can be overturned. Snap of the fingers once the Democrats come back. So you've got to get people in power, in positions of authority that are on our side. And Thune is like McConnell. He's a snake. He's a Judas. He's a backstabber. Okay? He's a classic RINO. He smiles to your face and he knifes you in the back. Or as Judas did, the kiss on the cheek. And then for 30 pieces of silver says, crucify him. That's what Thune is now doing. So if I'm the president, you have to know who your friends are, but more importantly, who your enemies are. And make no mistake about it, Thune is as bad an enemy as Schumer. In some ways, even worse. Because I've always said this about the Democrats. Say what you want. They tell you to your face they hate you. They tell you to your face they're coming for you. But the RINO is like Judas. I love you. Remember, when Jesus confronts Judas, he says, you will betray me. And Judas says, how dare you say that? How dare you say that? I love you. I would never do anything to betray you. I'm your most loyal of the apostles. Until he went to betray him. So the RINO kisses you on both cheeks. And then, when you least expect it, shanks you in the back. 617-266-6868 is the number. Agree, disagree. Let me ask you. Maybe this is what it's come down to. The debate has already started. In fact, it began yesterday. It's gone all night. It's going all day. It's not going to stop for the next couple of days on the SAVE Act. Is it time for Trump to toss Thune overboard, call for a leadership challenge, and try to install J.D. Vance at the 11th hour and get the SAVE Act passed? Or are we staring now at a massive defeat and failure? 617-266-6868. And if the SAVE Act does go down, what do we do? Okay, Maestro Mike, let's go to Thomas in Florida. Thanks for holding, Thomas, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Very good. How are you, Thomas?
I don't know what to say and how I could follow up what you just let us all in Kuhner Nation know. I've been on a different topic about the Smith-Munt Act. People need to know what's going on, and for that Smith-Munt Act to be reinstituted back to the way it was before Obama. Because I'll give you an example. Yesterday I was talking to somebody here in Florida, and they were criticizing. I said I used to work at Logan Airport. I guess it triggered this person, and all of a sudden she said, Trump. It was Trump's fault that we had these long lines and everything. She obviously didn't know anything about the situation in the Senate or the Congress on how things went down. So we got an uninformed, uneducated, and indoctrinated public.
Well, and Thomas, just to piggyback off of what you're saying, you're completely right, by the way. I've been urging Trump. I got to be careful how I say this, not just publicly, but privately through back channels, saying this should have been done on day one. But I keep urging him, you've got to reinstate the Smith-Mundt Act. And let me just give you a super quick example. ABC News, CNN, of course, those idiots on The View, they're repeating this lie, and it's a monstrous lie, that Trump had no clue. He never even thought that if they started to bomb Iran, that the mullahs would try to block the Strait of Hormuz. And so they keep saying he had no plan. He had no clue. He had no idea that the mullahs were going to actually block the Strait of Hormuz. He's a moron. When in fact, I can cite you the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, the Daily Telegraph, the Hill newspaper, the Times of London, Reuters, no friend of the president, Associated Press, no friend of the president, Politico, no friend of the president. I can keep going, who have reported extensively, that yes, one of the General Kane said, look, they're going to block the Strait of Hormuz. And that Trump was told about this, that there were options on how to deal with it in case it happened, so that Trump was fully aware that this would easily be one of the consequences of the war. Now, my point is, whatever you think about the war, to say that he had no idea they were going to block the Strait of Hormuz and that he took us to war and, what? They're going to block the Strait of Hormuz? What? It's a lie. It's pure propaganda. Under the Smith-Mundt Act, he could sue the pants off of ABC News and CNN and The View. I mean, sue them to oblivion. They're done. They're finished. They're off the air. They'd have to actually do some real, like, in other words, somebody would say, well, what? I don't think so. No, it's been widely reported. No, I'm sorry. That's not true. You may not like the war. You may be for or against, but no, it's been reported. General Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, told him repeatedly this is going to be one of the potential consequences and retaliatory actions by the theocracy in Iran. And that Trump said, okay, let's get a plan B. Let's get something in place as to counter this should this happen. So what I'm saying is the kind of lying, naked lying, bald-faced lying that the media is engaging in this case, some segments of the media, that would have been illegal before Smith-Mundt. In fact, it never would have happened. It just wouldn't have happened because under Smith-Mundt, you're finished. Financially, you're finished. You may either lose your license or get sued so much money you're out of business. You're bankrupt. So that's just a taste. It's just one example, Thomas, of the lying and the propaganda from the media that by repealing the Smith-Mundt Act that they're allowed to engage in. Thomas, final word to you.
You just made my sentiments, just vilified my sentiments about it. And that person I was telling you about, she said she was from the North and it was all Trump's fault that the people were waiting in line at TSA. She didn't even know what the real reason why was happening.
Now, I'm just curious, Thomas, when you told her, well, it's the Democrats that are refusing to fund DHS and TSA, what did she say to that?
Respond to that. I was going to say that, and when she blamed Trump for everything, I didn't even get a chance because she said, well, under Biden, Pete Buttigieg did a great job. And I looked at her and I walked away laughing. I said,
she said Joe Biden did a great job?
Joe Biden and having Transportation Secretary Buttigieg did a great job.
Forget it. Don't worry. You're wasting your breath. You did the right thing. Just walk away. No, I mean, there's a certain point. I'm serious. There's a certain point where you go, forget it. I mean, you're dealing with Chris in Gloucester and Bill in Sudbury. Forget it. You're dealing with a hardcore fanatic.